Click play and call it work.
Matthew's Thoughts.
Hey everybody, Matthew here from MiniWarGaming.com, and welcome to another episode of Matthew's Thoughts. This is the show where you get my thoughts on stuff about miniature wargaming. Different than the sit and talk, where I just cover one episode or one topic, and it's typically going to be shorter, unless I ramble a lot. So if you don't like my thoughts, then there's probably some other shows that we publish today that I'm sure you would like to go and enjoy. And if you want any particular topic covered, any reviews or hot topic of the day, just put it in the comments below, as long as it is miniature wargaming related. I'm going to continue my little mini-series of covering Angels of Death Codex supplement for the Space Marines. And this video, as you can tell by the title, is all about the new psychic powers. So this is where I can take this book and be like, see you later, because I bought the cards. I love all these little card supplements. They make everything a lot easier. Now, it's interesting, as I was kind of observing the rumors of this coming out many moons ago, like 2 or 3 months ago or whenever it was, that a lot of people were complaining because they thought some of the new stuff was rather powerful. And to be honest, some of the stuff is rather powerful, but in a game that has Eldar psychic powers, a game that has invisibility, and a lot of the other stuff that we have, they don't feel like their power level is infinitely higher, even with the one that lets you pick up a piece of terrain and move it. Now, these ones I haven't had a lot of time to play with, so you can kind of take all that with a grain of salt. But I do want to go over them and talk about the different disciplines that we do have access to as Space Marines. Starting with Fulmination. Why do I start with this one? Because it was the one on the top of my deck. So that's just why I'm doing it. Fulmination is a lot of like electricity kind of stuff, and it has some really interesting things that can happen if you manage to pull it off. And I did try out some of the psychic powers in the one game. I'll put a link in the video description below. I used a Librarius Conclave, and according to the new FAQ and a lot of what people think, I did a little wrong because I used Tigurius, and I allowed him to cast 5 psychic powers in one turn, which the Librarius Conclave is really easy to do. You know, manifesting on 2+, re-rolling fails, and getting all the powers of the nearby librarians. Either way, it allowed us to see just what these different things could do. And so I had access to a lot of the different psychic powers, even though I didn't use all of them. So some of this is just going to be based on Math Hammer, but others will be based on experience from that one game that I played as well. Fulmination is interesting in that it has some really good stuff and then some not so good stuff, but I think that's kind of the same with most disciplines. Everything from the Primaris power, which is a straight up 6 strength 5 AP4 shots at 18-inch range. That's like meh. To giving a Psyker a 3+ invuln, to having a 9-inch Nova, so from around the Psyker, that is haywire. That could be interesting against armor-heavy armies, or so if somebody brings in like a lot of land speeders and they're all within 9 inches. But 9 inches, typically you're not going to be hitting too many, but haywire is nice. So even if just getting that, even if you just hit 2 with that, that can be nice. And then we have fun stuff like the old Tesla arc thing from the Necrons in the previous edition, where it fires an 18-inch range, strength 5 AP4, D6 shots, but then every unit within 6 inches on a 4+ takes strength 5 AP4 hits, D6 of them, so it actually bounces a lot better than the old Tesla arc, so that's kind of cool. Fists of Lightning, which allows your Psyker to go and have his fists turn into lightning, so that when he hits an enemy, the enemy takes an additional 2 strength 5 AP nothing hits in addition to the hit. Now that one was interesting because it says each time the Psyker hits an enemy in close combat, they suffer 2 additional strength 5. Now I had read that to mean every hit that you did, so if I roll 4 to hits and I get 3 of them, then they take those 3 hits plus 6 strength 5 AP nothing hits. But then some people pointed out, they're like, no, it just says it would only happen once because each time the Psyker hits an enemy. So if I roll 4 dice and I get 3 hits, did I hit him 3 times or did I hit him once? I still think that he should get the extra 2 strength 5 hits each time because, like, don't get me wrong, it's awesome. It's strength 5 AP nothing. It would be very powerful. And he also gets to add 1 to his strength in his attack. So on a librarian, it's going to be 1 extra attack at strength 5, assuming he doesn't have any other special weapon. And so he's getting a lot of strength 5 hits off on his opponent, which can be devastating against things. So it's, jury's still out whether that's supposed to be 2 extra strength 5 hits per hit, or just if you hit the enemy at all, you get these 2 extra. I think it's per hit, but that could be really powerful. But not as cool as the last 2, Magnetokinesis. You know it's cool because it says Nito. And Magnetokinesis is a warp charge 2, a single unit within 8 inches. Unless it's zooming, swooping, or locked in combat, it moves 18 inches. And this moves like, it basically lifts it up into the sky, so ignores intervening models and terrain. But it does have to take dangerous terrain if it ends or starts in difficult terrain. So it kind of turns it into like a jump infantry, except this is in the psychic phase. So something could move up, it gets blessed, and it moves another 18 inches. Now it can't charge after it does this, and it counts as moving, of course, in the shooting phase. So the not being able to charge is very important, because otherwise you could move very far. But the last one I think is so cool, and it's probably my favorite psychic power out of all the new ones. It's called Electro-Displacement. I love how this sounds like stuff from a comic book. Electro-Displacement is a blessing that targets a friendly unit within 24 inches, and you essentially take your Psyker, which is usually Librarian, and his unit, and you swap it with the unit that you just blessed. If they're locked in combat, now you're locked in combat. If they're not locked in combat and you were locked in combat, then now you're not. So for example, you have a lone Librarian that gets assaulted and somehow survives, or maybe he's all that's left, that's why he's a lone Librarian, and you've got a Terminator assault squad or a Centurion assault squad, if you actually bring that, within 24 inches, then in his psychic phase, he can swap with them, and all of a sudden this unit that thought they were just fighting against this lonely weakling Librarian is now fighting against whatever you choose. Or maybe he's by himself and there's like one lone scout within 24 inches, you just want to get away. So you target that scout and whoop, yeah, swap with them. And I was almost able to pull this off in the game that I played in the link below. Didn't happen, but it would have been epic if it actually did happen, because it just would have been so cool. So that one's really neat. And unless locked in close combat, they can't charge. Oh, sorry, these units can charge in the same turn. That's an important one. Can charge in the same turn. So you run your Librarian up, or something else up, like let's say infiltrating, scouting scouts, and they start on the board, and they scout forward. Like, think about that for a second. An infiltrating unit that infiltrates or a scouting unit that scouts can't charge in the first turn. But if you swap with them, you can. Just think of the implications of that. So you infiltrate a scout squad, scout move it forward, and then on your turn, it moves close to the enemy, and you swap with your Librarian, who maybe is attached to a group of assault Terminators, or something else that's really good at getting close combat, and you can still charge, because you didn't technically infiltrate or scout. So that's really awesome. I thought that was the coolest power, and I wish I had with the ability to show it off more in that one battle report, but I will definitely try to use it again in the future. The next one up is Geokinesis. This is the one that had people kind of rage quitting when they saw the shifting worldscape, which allows you to move a piece of terrain with everything inside of it, and they can still technically charge after they do so, because it doesn't say that they can't. So this one deals with manipulating terrain or manipulating just the world, hence Geokinesis. Don't know where the kinesis part comes in, but I guess it's kinetic energy that's ripping apart these chasms. The Primaris is a warp charge 2 chasm, and it just targets an enemy unit within 18 inches. It's not a Witchfire, it's not a Blessing, it's not a Malediction, it just targets an enemy unit within 18 inches, and they take dangerous terrain. No armor saves allowed. Not bad. Kind of interesting. Could be useful against vehicles. Earthblood, you target a single friendly non-vehicle character within 18 inches, it recovers D3 wounds, and it gains It Will Not Die. So if it's your turn, it gets D3 wounds, and then if it's still not enough, then the It Will Not Die might heal the last one. Scorched Earth, Malediction targets a point on the battlefield within 24 inches, so you don't even target a unit. So there's no denying this with anything better than a 6+, because you're not targeting a unit. Choose the point where it's manifested. Each unit within 6 inches of that point immediately suffers a single strength 5 BP4 hit with ignore cover. But that's not a big deal, because it's just a single one. In addition, while the power is in effect, all terrain within 6 inches is dangerous. So this is a really good way to shut down a group of vehicles, because all of a sudden they're going to all have to take dangerous terrain tests, unless they're moved through cover or dozer blades. They don't really care about that kind of thing anyways. But this one's kind of interesting. Now you could argue that because it hits things within 6 inches that they could use their Psyker stuff to deny it. Maybe that's true. I don't know. It doesn't really matter, because it's not that great a power anyways. Landquake, Malediction targets all enemy units within 18 inches. So it's a Nova Malediction 18-inch one. And while this power is in effect, the targets move as if they're in difficult terrain, and they can't run, turbo boost, or flat out. Now this doesn't affect flyers. Or, sorry, no effect on swooping or zooming units. That's pretty awesome. It's a Malediction that targets everybody within 18 inches, and they can't run flat out or turbo boost, and they're going through difficult terrain. So you're quaking the ground, and that really, really slows them down. So it's a good way to shut down a faster army. And then phase form, you target a single friendly within 24 inches, they get move through cover, ignore cover, and they don't need line of sight in order to shoot. So they basically can see through terrain. That's really cool. It's only warp charge 1, 2. So just for the ignore cover benefit, that's pretty awesome. Just a warp charge 1, ignore cover, never mind ignore terrain. That is pretty cool. Warp Quake, Witchfire, targets a single building or piece of or ruins within 24 inches. If you hit a building, then on a 4+, it's penned, otherwise it's glanced. If you hit ruins, on a 4+, each unit rolls a die, and on a 4+, they take D6 strength 6 from falling debris. So it's cool against a building, not so interesting against ruins. And then Shifting Worldscape, this is the one that people really hate. Warp Charge 3, so it is hard to pull off, although with the Librarius Conclave, not really. You target a single terrain feature within 24 inches of the Psyker, you pick it up, and you move it 24 inches. If there is a unit wholly within it, friendly or enemy, they go with it, but they're not targeted. This is important because any units that have all their models on the piece of terrain are moved with it. Otherwise, they're moved 1 inch away from it, like they disembark from it, essentially. And they also take they basically take a dangerous terrain test, but that's all it says. It just says the unit that's wholly within it moves with it. It doesn't give any caveats afterwards. For example, can they charge? Well, rules is written, sure, why not? There's nothing against charging as long as it doesn't say that you can't charge. Because that other Fulmination power that moved them 18 inches says they can't charge afterwards. But it doesn't say it for this one. I think that's a mistake. Hopefully they'll errata that. But in the meantime, you stick guys inside of a small piece of terrain, you lift it up in the psychic phase, you move it 24 inches, and they can charge. Or they can fire their flamers, or they can do whatever else they want. And that includes a vehicle, so a dreadnought could be in there. Heck, you could have multiple units inside of there. They'll have to take dangerous terrain tests, but you're a space marine, so what do you care about dangerous terrain tests? Then we've got Technomancy. Woo! This one is all about vehicles, hence techno, because, you know, vehicles are the technology, not their power armor and all their weapons, apparently. So Technomancy has some really lackluster powers, but it also has some really cool ones, too. The Primaris, for example, is Subvert Machine, which you choose a single enemy vehicle within 18 inches. Then you randomly select one of its weapons, and then you both roll a d6. If your opponent rolls higher, nothing happens. If you draw, he can only snap fire that weapon, but you randomly choose the weapon, remember. So if he has lots of weapons, you might just get like the sponson mounted heavy bolter or something. But if you roll higher, you can fire that weapon using all their rules, and then that's it. They don't even have to snap fire after that. So this one's kind of boring. You got Blessing of the Machine, which gives a friendly vehicle within 24 inches the ability to ignore crew shake and crew stunned, and give it the Power of the Machine Spirit. If it already has Power of the Machine Spirit, like a Land Raider, it gives it +1 Ballistic skill. That one's kind of fun. Oh, and by the way, you can use this one if you're embarked on the vehicle. Normally you can't cast Psychic Powers except for Witchfire out of a fire point if you're on a vehicle, but a lot of these Technomancies, he can cast it on the vehicle that he's in. This includes this one. Machine Curse, Focus Witchfire, 18 inches. They take D3 Haywire hits. That's nice. Reforge, you single friendly vehicle within 24 inches, and you can either gain a hull point back, repair weapon destroyed, or immobilized, and then it will not die, and that includes the transport that the Psyker is on. Warp Metal Armor, probably my favorite for this one. Warp Charge 2, the vehicle that is targeted gets +1 to all of its armor values. Yes, armor 15 all around on your Land Raiders. If the Librarian's inside of it, he can cast it on that one. So he goes inside of a vehicle, and he's just like, "You are powerful! Do not let me die, please." Armor 15 Land Raiders are super OP. So that's pretty awesome. Fury of Mars is an 18-inch beam with Haywire. That's kind of cool. And then Machine Flens, Focus Witchfire, target single enemy vehicle within 18 inches. They lose D3 hull points, just like that. And for each hull point that it loses, you do D6 Strength 4 AP6 rending hits on an enemy unit within 12 inches. So if you take 3 hull points off, you can choose 3 different units. Because you're basically like ripping off the metal and then hurling it at an enemy unit. So that's pretty cool. Strength 4 is not a big deal, but the fact that it's rending could actually do some damage. So, and on the fact that you're doing just a straight up D3 hull points off a vehicle. Who cares about his armor? Who cares about invulns? It doesn't actually, they don't suffer D3 penetrating hits or glancing hits. So technically, cover saves wouldn't be allowed against that. Maybe that'll be errated, but rules is written. That's the way it is. Librarius deals with like anti-psyker, anti-other stuff. It's almost like their miscellaneous one. Primaris power, for example, is a blast, strength 5, AP3, 18 inches. So they took warp blast from the Tyranids and they gave it to the Space Marines but it's only warp charge 1. Seems fair, seems legit. It's only 18 inches instead of 24, but other than that, it's identically the same power, except it doesn't have the alternate one, the Strength 8 Lance. But still, stealing our powers. Stay away from the Tyranid powers. Veil of Time, blessing the Psyker's unit, and they can reroll all their saving throws. That's an Eldar power. So I guess this is the discipline that steals from everybody else's powers. Fury of the Ancients, the beam, strength 20 inch, which is a weird one. Strength 6, pinning, meh. If you got nothing else, then why not? Psychic Fortress, it's a blessing that targets a Psyker. All friendly units within 12 inches have Fearless and Adamantium Will. Once again, that's pretty awesome. That sounds like no, that sounds pretty awesome. Fearless and Adamantium Will. And they get 4+ invulns against Witchfire wounds. So that's kind of cool. Might of Heroes, a blessing targets a Psyker. He gets +2 to his strength, toughness, initiative, and attacks. So suck it, Biomancy powers. He gets all of them at once, except it's only +2, not +3. But let's face it, a Librarian becoming strength 6, toughness 6, initiative 6, 5 attacks, base, that's pretty scary. So that's pretty awesome. Psychic Scourge, it's a malediction. You target an enemy Psyker. You both roll 2 dice and add your mastery level. You roll 2 dice, add your mastery level. The other Psyker rolls a single die and adds their mastery level, so you have a good chance of beating them. If they beat you, nothing happens. If it's drawn, or your result is higher, the target suffers a wound with no saves of any kind allowed, and while this power is in effect, can only successfully harness warp charge points on a 6. So that'll shut down an Eldar Psyker very quickly, because even though they're really awesome, maybe they're Farseer with a 3, like a warp charge 3. They're only getting D6 plus 3, and you're getting 2d6 plus minimum 1, and easily 2 if you upgrade your Psyker, or 3 if you're awesome Tigurius. But let's just say you're a 2. 2d6 plus 2, the average is 9. D6 plus 3, your average is 7, 7.5. So on average, you should really be able to beat even an Eldar Farseer with this. And if they're only manifesting on 6 pluses, they're sucking, because they're most likely periling if they even get it off. If your result is at least 3 points higher, then they lose a psychic power. So this one, Warp Charge 1 Psychic Scourge, is an anti-Psyker one for sure. Very, very powerful. And lastly, we have Null Zone. It's a malediction, targets an enemy unit within 24 inches. While it's in effect, they get -2 to invulns. And this is cumulative, but cannot make it worse than 6+. So that one's interesting. That would be useful against like Storm Shield Terminators, for example. Make their 3-up invuln a 5-up invuln. And it could be useful against demons, but it'll only be like a -1, because demons usually have 5-up invuln, unless they have some buffs on it. So you could debuff some super buffed demons as well, but you don't usually need extra help against chaos demons. So that one's that. So out of all of them, I think my favorite is Technomancy. Was a lot of fun, I remember, in the game. Geokinesis has potential. I didn't really get to use it. Fulmination has, once again, some powers that are good. Librarius, they all have like gems in them, and then some of them are just like meh. But if you bring at least a couple librarians, then you can kind of mitigate some of the problems of not getting the right ones. So really cool additions. I don't think that they're super overpowered, except for maybe a couple of them, but no more so than some of the ones that we have already in the main rulebook, or that some of the other Eldar have access to anyways. And so, yeah, it makes the Space Marines more powerful, but I also think it makes them more flavorful and gives them a lot more to do. I hope that this speaks that they're going to do the same thing for other species, like maybe Tyranids. They could use, like, honestly, I'd love to see Tyranids have 3 psychic disciplines, because they only have 1 right now, and it kind of sucks. I'd love to see more utility in there because of that. So if they can pull that off, that would be great. Just a little note out there, Games Workshop. Update the Tyranids, it's something interesting. And I guess the Orcs, the Chaos Space Marines, maybe the Sisters of Battle, and a few other of the species or races as well that could seriously need an update to be more competitive, or at least more interesting. So those are my thoughts for today. A little longer video because we had to go through a lot more stuff. Let me know what you thought in the comments below, and let me know also what other topics you want me to cover. Stay tuned for more Matthew's thoughts. Go watch the battle report that we actually use the psychic powers on. That'll be a link in the video description. And happy wargaming.